I'm just outside of Nashville, Tennessee for the launch of the 2025 Civic Si, and Mark has assigned me this task as penance for all of my V8-ness. So what is the Civic Si? For those who do not know, it sits between a Civic Sport and a Civic Type R. The Si is supposed to be that fun commuter car with a little bit of sport, tremendous inputs, low running costs, good fuel economy, and a car that you want to drive every single day that still gives you a semblance of fun so you don't have to drive your car into oncoming traffic. And that's what the Si accomplishes. For 25, they've made a series of changes, both mechanical to the interior and to the exterior. The car is now priced at $29,900. With destination, it's just over or around $31,000. They've changed the front fascia of this vehicle. It gets a new grille and a new bumper. And in the rear, the only thing that changes is the rear taillights now get a bit darker. From an interior perspective, this is still a FL5 generation Civic, which means it is a very nice place to be. What this generation of Civic has done well is unshitbox the compact car. All the touch points are good. The dash is nice and compact. Everything is physical. It feels expensive. It feels like a class above. The seats in this car are the Si seats. They're very comfortable. They are now heated for 2025. You get an all-digital gauge cluster ripped right out of the Type R. You get their latest infotainment system, which has Google built in. It still puts its audio through an Bose audio system, which is quite good. The rear seats still fold down. They're very comfortable. A full-size adult will fit back there, but there's no AC vents in the back. And the trunk in this thing is absolutely enormous from an input perspective, because that's what makes the Si special. Good pedal box, tremendous shifter ripped right out of the old FK8 Type R, reasonable feeling steering wheel, and good steering itself. Now, mechanically, what have they changed? Well, it's largely body structure. It is now 3% more rigid. They've changed some of the door sill design in the back, primarily for safety. They're trying to maintain the highest side impact crashworthiness as possible. They have made some suspension changes though. The front subframe mounts are more rigid, the suspension mounting points are more rigid, and they've retuned the suspension settings themselves, specifically dampers, to be a little bit more compliant. One of the biggest complaints of this car from the prior model years is it didn't ride particularly well, and they've now addressed that issue in this car. It is noticeably more compliant, but it still maintains all of the good body control the Si had originally. Dampers are still not active. Drivetrain unchanged. It is a 1.5 liter four-cylinder, makes 200 horsepower, basically makes that to the wheel. We've dynoed that in the past, and it puts its power down through a helical limited slip differential in the front, and it has, of course, a 6-speed manual. Only way you can buy this car, the only change they've made to the transmission is you can now rev match into first gear. Rev matching already existed, but you can now rev match downshift into first gear. But with all that said, I think it's time for us to go take this for a quick drive with some Canadians. You guys ready to feel four-cylinder?
Always.
1.5 liter, 4 cylinders. I have some Canadians in my car. We make 200 horsepower, a little less than that in torque. Yeah.
Possibly a little bit less than that with 3 of us in here. Yuri, how'd you get in here?
You know, this is my Uber. Pick me up.
You know, they say three's a crowd, Yuri.
Jack picked us up on our way to Hattie B's for some Nashville hot chicken sandwiches.
Well, thankfully these seats are the color where some Nashville comes out of Yuri, because I know he's legendarily a bad passenger. We'll be good.
I'm not a bad passenger.
If you see the fear in his eyes, you know Jack's driving appropriately.
Fear, yeah.
Oh, naturally. And there's a Audi about a foot from off for a bumper.
Oh my, yeah, he's not letting up. Wow, didn't expect that.
All right. You guys have driven the old car. You've driven basically everything we have. How does this feel in its class? Its class is basically, I guess, GLI, old GTI, and then this. The Elantra N's more money, basically serves a much different purpose. The Civic Si is bought because you want something that is sporty, not necessarily fast, because this is not a fast car. And you want something that is fuel efficient and a good commuter.
Yeah, I feel like this is a really good middle ground where it's not the best at anything, but the whole package is just really good.
Yeah, what do you think, Gary?
It's good entry-level Honda manual, because then once you get used to this, then you can work up to a Type R, So it's a good starting point. Like if you go with the GLI, then what? Where are you going? Golf R? Does that even have a manual still?
No, not anymore.
No, it does not. I think from an input perspective, right, what this does better than its German rival, really to me the only rival it has is the GLI at this point. It's a much better manual gearbox. It is much better pedal placement. It has solid inputs.
Yeah.
Obviously, naturally, we're on the least windy but windy road in the world. Nothing tight. This is all long sweepers. We're about to get passed by now. There we go.
Oh, hell yeah,
Double
America!
Welcome to Tennessee, sir.
German car just passes, but that's fine.
The helical limited slip in this car does a good job putting down power in tight sections. I mean, it's everything you basically want.
It's nice that they didn't delete that for cost savings.
Yes.
What I would have liked to see from this is a little bump in power, just because we do have the hybrid as well, and the hybrid now has more torque than this.
All right, so let's talk about that. On the internet, you saw a lot of people like, oh, why does the SI even exist? The hybrid's quicker. You and I have both spent time in the sedan and the hatch hybrid Civic. They are a much different character than this, though. Even if the hybrid is technically faster to 60, it's nowhere as sporty as this car is.
Right, and then this is the only way to get a turbo 4-cylinder manual transmission from Honda that isn't a Type R.
Yeah.
Because they've eliminated that from the regular Civics now.
And the Accord as well.
Yeah, that's
the Accord
right.
is auto only. This is sort of a hyper niche car, but I know why people are excited about it. And I wanted to talk to you, Yuri, off camera. You had a GTI in the past, and you told me you would never buy another Volkswagen. There's a reason for that, right? It's running costs.
Yeah, it's a lot more expensive for like an oil change and stuff. So like, I would prefer to just stay in like the Honda family or like Japanese cars.
Yeah, I guess.
Valid point.
Yeah, I mean, there's really not. I mean, if you're buying this, you love Hondas. You're willing to look past the fact that it, isn't super quick, but you are getting good fuel economy, a reasonable feeling engine. Yeah, it still has rev hang. It doesn't really like pulling all the way to redline. I think it makes peak power under 6,000, redline 6,500. So your last 500-600 RPM is just there purely to be there. It's not actually delivering any more power. But it does everything really, really well. And the main thing for me, at least, I know you guys may or may not have talked about this in your video, they softened up the car. So with the increase in body rigidity, specifically in all the suspension mounts, they made this car a little bit softer than it used to be. So on bad pavement in areas that isn't these wonderful roads here in Tennessee, it's not going to beat you up as much in the commute. And that's if you are going to buy one of these things, new versus used, typically because SIs do hold their value pretty well. That's one of the reasons I would look at a 25. I don't really care about the heated seats or the Google head unit.
What about the digital gauge cluster with the LED lights?
let me show
This is
you the
Formula
LEDs.
One inspired technology, Jack. Whoa, easy there, Max Verstappen.
All right. Well, with that, guys, we'll head into the final thoughts. Final thoughts on the 2025 Civic Si. Huge thanks to our friends at Honda, Andrew, Lynn, and of course Dan, the product planner, who sat down and walked me through all the various technical changes. And of course, thanks to our Canadian friends, Jacob and Erie from the Straight Pipes. So what about the car itself? Well, first off, let's talk about how it compares to the Civic Hybrid sedan, as we've not driven the hatch yet, though it's mechanically identical. In comparison, they have two very different characters. Yes, the hybrid is technically faster to 60, but you don't drive a stat sheet. They have very different personalities. They drive differently. The hybrid is essentially a luxury boat. It's very quiet, it's compliant, has ultimate fuel economy, and it is nowhere as entertaining to drive on a back road. What the SI has is a manual gearbox, better inputs, better body control. Now, how do these cars, or how does the SI stack up to the general car market? Does it accomplish its task? Well, there are essentially no affordable four-door sporty manual cars left on the market. It's just this and the GLI. And when you compare this to the VW, at least the prior model year GLI, this has better inputs while it is less powerful. It has a much better manual gearbox, better pedal box, and just it feels more connected to drive day in and day out. The changes they made for 25 just make this a better car. It rides better, has a better infotainment system, and in some ways, at least to my eye, looks a little better. If you own a 22 or 23 SI, I'm not saying make a change, but if you are shopping in this segment of vehicle, the SI should be in the very top of your list. So with that, thanks for watching. Hope to see you again soon.